Not to be redundant of my earlier comments on House Bill 4402, but with regards to extra and co-curricular elements in the accountability system, we have deep school finance and equity concerns. In particular, without providing funding for extra and co-curriculars, we believe you invite constitutional risk in terms of a de facto statewide property tax, and I'm happy to discuss that further. I'd like to say thank you so much to Representative Allison for talking with us about our concerns, and we look forward to working with your office on other legislation this session. Thanks in part to the A through F system and efforts undertaken by the Texas legislature, Texas has seen more students doing better in school since 2012. From 2013 to 2017, the number of failing campuses was cut in half, and this happened again since 2019 under the A through F system. I think this is remarkable because A through F has only been in place for functionally 1 year in the 2018-2019 school year. A little known fact about the A through F system is that students in an A and B campus are 2.8 times more likely to graduate from college. If we believe that college readiness and college completion is something that the state should attain to, I think that it's logical to assume that the A through F system is correlated with a higher degree of readiness among our students, which is something worthy to be upheld. Not a lot of people realize that prior to the pandemic, Texas saw continuous performance improvement on the STAR test. This is very important because the STAR test is the first Texas assessment aligned to college and career readiness. This means that if more students are doing better on the STAR test, more students are ready for life after high school. And isn't this the purpose of our public education system, to get more students on grade level in reading, math, science, and history so that they can go on to be productive adults? This ultimately sums up our worldview on changes to the accountability system. A change should only be made to the A through F system if it will result in more students reading and doing math on grade level or more students ready for college and career. There's been a lot of talk this interim about recognizing what a school contributes to its community and incorporating that into the accountability system. I think this is a wonderful sentiment, but it detracts from the purpose of public education policy to improve student outcomes.
Please wrap up your testimony.
And thank you for your time.
Okay. All right, members, any questions for this witness? All right, Representative Hinojosa.
So is your sole objection here the financial allotment that's missing?
No, ma'am. I think that we would still have public policy concerns with extra and co-curriculars that I'm happy to go into, but my most profound and most deep concerns lie with the inequity of what I believe is including a Tier 2 element into what is functionally a Tier 1 system.
So we could, but if we put an allotment that would address the issues with equity in terms of making sure everybody has the same funding for it, and so then what would be your policy concern?
I think the policy concern would be since extra and co-curriculars have historically been funded by Tier 2, which is generated by golden pennies. If you allow me to compare two districts, Grady ISD gets about $10,000 per kid per WADA in Tier 2 funding alone. Chillicothe ISD only gets about $500. These districts have the same amount of golden pennies. They have the same amount of per WADA. So while I appreciate the efforts, particularly like in House Bill 4402, to provide $19 per student to help towards the extra and co-curricular completion, I do not think that that's going to overcome the $9,000 difference that districts experience on Tier 2. So I would again urge caution when we consider extra and co-curriculars in the accountability system.
It seems like we shouldn't, though, base our accountability system on money, right? We should be basing it on what's best for kids. We can fix the money problem. That's part of our job, too. And we can work on that. Putting money aside, assuming we can adjust and adjust for equity purposes the amount of money that's given to school districts, would you then support the bill?
So I would still have policy concerns with including extracurriculars, and I have two examples for you. So in Louisiana, when they included surveys coupled with an extra co-curricular-like indicator for 5% of their accountability system, every single elementary and middle school in the state of Louisiana got an A. Every single high school in the state of Louisiana got just a perfect score. In the same thing, when you look at TEA's extra and co-curricular report, they specifically say in the report that those districts that had an extra and co-curricular program that they were doing with intentionality saw 98 to 100% of students in an extra co-curricular type of offering. It's tough for us to consider contemplating a metric that we think functionally all students would achieve in an accountability system, because an accountability system is about fundamentally holding districts accountable, but also differentiating between the offerings that they have so that they can better inform parents.
That's interesting. Let me see if I understand. So you think what is key to our accountability system is differentiating campuses and kids Is that what you?
I think a critical element of any good and transparent accountability system is differentiating performance in a way that both parents, teachers, and school officials can understand. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because as a parent, and we heard questioning earlier from one of my colleagues, we just want to know, what is the standard for passing? What should my third grader be reading at what level? And is he or not? But it seems like from your perspective, what you value is, how is he doing compared to other schools and ranking my child in my school against other schools?
Well, I think that gets back to the design that you all have adopted in the ASREF system. So right now you have a system that's based on 3 domains. Of course, domain 1 is just basically raw star performance plus your CCMR score. Domain 2 is your growth. And then domain 2B is actually relative performance. So we do, as a public policy matter of the state, judge districts by their performance in relation to similarly situated districts with similar levels of poverty.
But we actually compare campuses that aren't really similar, like we compare choice campuses, for instance, to neighborhood campuses, choice campuses where families self-select, right, who goes to a certain campus. I'll give you an example in my own district. Ann Richards School's a great school, but you have to write an essay to get in. It's a magnet school. It's a different population of students than a neighborhood school. And of course, they always perform really well on our accountability measures compared to our neighborhood schools, but it's not really fair. And so there are problems with our current accountability system, but what I'm hearing from you is this value placed on comparing like campuses that, in my eyes, aren't really like.
I think every parent wants to know how their third grader compares to a third grader in a district around them or a third grader across the state, because ultimately when they're applying to college, when they're going and getting an HVAC certification, when they're pursuing any other kind of post-secondary opportunity, the discrete performance of that student relative to their peers does matter.
Well, but what also matters is income level, and right? And so you've mentioned, for instance, in a student that is at a campus that is an A or B campus performs better in post-secondary, has better post-secondary success. But those A and B campuses are, for the most part, from wealthier, have wealthier populations in them, and can do things like get extra tutoring for their kids, like I do for my kid, get extra supports that, so it's hard to say that you can. So how do we compare? Isn't it so much tied to income?
So I actually have, of course, 2036, I have a chart that I can show you. And basically in this chart, we can look at the average economically disadvantaged level of a district relative to their ASREF performance score. And what you do not see is any kind of clear correlation trending down on the more poverty a district or campus experiences, the more low their ASREF score will be. And what you actually see
even if you take out charters, which self-select.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, if you take out, if magnets too. We filtered out magnets, knowing that that is a concern. And I'm happy to send that to your office. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, members, any more questions to this witness? All right, Representative Tallarico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Marilyn, for being here. I always learn a lot whenever you testify, which is a great thing. So, and I agree with a lot of what you said, and I hate the either-or choice that sometimes we pit these things against each other, when I think the key is wholeness, right, and balance. Key of so many things in life, and the same is true in education and in accountability. Accountability and assessment are important to me for all the reasons that you stated. My concern is something that's based entirely on one test, and I think you kind of hit on it in your testimony when you said the goal of our education system is proficiency in reading, writing, and arithmetic, reading, writing, and mathematics. That is true. It is a goal, maybe the primary goal, but it's not the only goal, right? We all know Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy were proficient in, reading, writing, and mathematics. So it can't be our goal has to be much more than that, of raising fully actualized human beings, right? And academics is maybe the foundational part of that, but there's got to be more. And I want our accountability system to be measuring more than just those core subjects. Curious if you have any thoughts about what those other measures could be. Seems like you have some concerns, valid concerns about co-curricular, extracurricular. Do you have, or does Texas 2036 have ideas of what else could be included besides the one test?
Yes, we do. And I think I would probably describe one of the mission and purpose of public education in our state as a general diffusion of knowledge, of which you all have laid out in statute. It's the performance in the 4 core subjects, but it's also just graduating and being a successful adult. Sure. And thank goodness that the 8th Rev system pretty heavily weights college, career, and military readiness. So there is some recognition in the system that's far beyond STAR test. In fact, 2 of our domains out of the 3 that most districts score within are equally weighted STAR and CCMR. And so within that, I would think that I could direct you to one of the things that 4402 did really well was the Algebra 1 indicator. We know that it aligns with data. We know that it's a little bit of an input, but it's also got a really robust data history in terms of what the output will be. And our encouragement to you all would be to look at the states that we want to emulate. So one of the best states in the country on public education right now is Mississippi. So what is Mississippi doing in both its approach to early education and an early education accountability that we could model? And I do think there's some other provisions in the Florida model, and they have seen consistent results. You know, we all love to hate on Florida. And they also include some middle school level indicators that relate to the academic achievement of the child. So.
Well, I think there's a lot of folks here trying to Florida our Texas. I don't know if there is a lot of people who are upset with Florida. True. And I hear that, and I appreciate the mathematics answer, which is in the bill we heard previously. Anything in elementary school, that's my concern, is, we're
absolutely.
not, the advanced mathematics wouldn't apply there.
So one of the problems is that there is no STAR for K through 2, and I don't necessarily get the tone or the tenor of our public debate in this state that we want to start STAR testing K through 2-year-olds, but there are a couple of other assessments that if you could do in a valid, reliable, comparable, fair, and transparent way, which is ultimately a question for the agency, I think that you could continue to explore, including like DIBELS. If you were able to manage DIBELS in a way that didn't take up too much teacher time. There's also other exams for K through 2 called SAT 9 or SAT 10 that are certainly worth exploring, although I can't say that I would necessarily recommend them. But when I've asked kind of the best and brightest in the country, help Texas, help you by coming up with better and better indicators, that's what they've always directed me to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.